and welcome to the Nighthawk Racing and F1 RST Championship. Firstly, I'm Midnight. You can see myself and the rest of our other drivers here on our Nighthawk Racing YouTube, where you can check out the entire back catalogue of seasons 1 to 3 of the F1 RST series. Also, our mini-series and all one-off race events, all of which are highly competitive and lots of fun. Please check out our Instagram and TikTok for other content and races too. Link in the description or scan the QR dot for more information. But now, let's focus on the event at hand. So tonight is Season 4 Round 7 Trial Mountain Blue Lobby. So a little more information on the championship. There are 10 events that you can see on our calendar in front of you now, which are divided up into red and blue lobbies. There are 2 racing events with a qualifying session for the big feature race itself. The sprint race tonight is 10 laps. The grid is formed via how drivers line up in reverse average points scored across the season. The feature race is 37 laps. All drivers must use 2 different tyre compounds while starting on the same compound they set their fastest lap in the qualify session just before. As a reminder, the blue lobby has all driver aids switched on, such as traction control, ASM and ABS, whereas the red lobby has all of these disabled with the exception of ABS for that true hardcore driving experience to really challenge our drivers.
Right, so while the drivers are having fun qualifying, let's talk a little bit about Trial Mountain. So, I've not got much experience around this track, so I'm excited to see how everyone gets on. But Trial Mountain is a fictional circuit that appeared in most of the GT games except for GT Sport, and it also featured on the Gran Turismo PSP. Never got the chance to play that on PSP, but it sounds fun. I missed out on that. But it's set in the mountain area of Nevada, USA, and it features a lot of several blind corners, 3 tunnels in total, a very long uphill back straight, and a series of fast compound corners. Some players see it as one of the easiest circuits in the series. That is one of the easiest to drive and memorise. However, it is one of the hardest circuits to drive fast due to its length. And in GT7, it went and undergone a full renovation. As a result, the full length is increased to just over 5 kilometres. So, like it says, obviously in GT7, the circuit length has boosted up to 5.4 kilometres, or just over 3.3 miles long. It's got 15 turns in total, and it's like that introduction said, it's a very kind of mixed track. Some drivers love it, some drivers hate it. It's kind of like Marmite. But let's see how everyone got on in qualifying, and hopefully Trial Mountain lives up to its name and provides us with some good racing. Right, so you join us for the sprint race around Trial Mountain, round 7, and on pole position we have T50 Gary in that Nissan GTR, his second ever Nighthawk racing event, so looking to get some better results than last week and just show how fast he is. In P2 we have the return of Tygo in that Ferrari 458. In P3 we then have our Super Simon in that McLaren 650S, looking for a good result around here. Potentially, maybe his first time driving around here, so again another track to add to under his belt. P4 we then have the return of Sparky in that McLaren 650S as well, so the McLaren's securing the second row of the grid. In P5 we then have Iceman. He's back, and he's back for the rest of the season, I hear, or so a little birdie told me, in that Genesis X, and he's in a new livery. It's very Nighthawk colour-esque, so make sure to look out for that. It does look pretty awesome. And in P6 we then have Lee. He's back in that Porsche 911 with the BTCC style unlimited motorsport livery. And I'm going to hand you over to Midnight, who will run through the rest of the grid for me.
Thank you, Sarah. And in P7 we have our very own big crazy Bertie in that McLaren 650S. Wouldn't be a Blue Lobby without him. In P8 we have one of our other admin of Ziggy, or Bila Dorada, in that Mercedes AMG. In P9 we have half of our Nighthawk Racing co-founders in that lovely blue and red Nighthawk Racing livery M6. Good luck to you out there, Sarah. In P10 we have one of our rookies in Murphy from TWR in that Supra. Good luck to him out there today. He's been doing well of late. In P11 we have Citterley in that Lexus. He has done quite well recently, and he's sort of just on the cusp of the red lobby, as well as our next driver in P12 of T50 Phil, one half of the T50 alliance we have in this lobby here today in that Nissan GTR. Good luck to the pair of them today. But Sarah, that looks like a hell of a grid for the blue lobby this week, particularly in the sprint. I think it's going to be a tight, interesting one.
Yeah, I can't agree more. It's an awesome grid. I'm looking forward to racing alongside these these clean races, and I've got to say, I've competed against them for quite a few weeks now, and there's a lot of respect. They're so fast, sometimes I can't even keep up with them, but I'm going to try my best this race. But yeah, like you say, awesome grid and awesome looking cars, and I can't wait to see how everyone gets on.
Yeah, exactly that. And we know this is a track that you want to know who you're going up against, and particularly for clean driving. So I think that's a good sentiment to lead this off on, and let's head into that sprint race.
Welcome everybody to Trial Mountain. Here we are for the anticipated sprint race on this lovely street circuit. I mean, you can kind of count it as a street circuit. It's in the mountains and it's fairly tight, so I'm going to count it as a street circuit. The lights are out and they're ready for the rolling start as Gary leads the pack into this twisty first sector. A lot of high-speed corners here, so it's going to be interesting to see if there's any moves made at all. You can see Tigo right on the back of Gary, that 458 chasing down the GTR, dropping back as they head out of that S section. You can see Simon there in third position as everyone follows. Sparky trying to go around the outside of Simon and just not getting the move done. The 650S not getting the acceleration off of the hairpin. There's a few drivers side by side. They go through that very tight right-hander. Very easy to muck it up there. The walls definitely come up right at you as you exit some of these corners. And you see Sparky and Lee side by side, the two 650Ss going side by side. There's a bit of contact as the dirt picked up as Lee in the Porsche has gone up into P3. And apologies, that was actually Bertie and Sparky. I said Lee, I believe. But yeah, it's just confusing times. We're here at Trial Mountain and it's very easy to get confused with everything happening on the track, especially in the start of the sprint race where people are trying to make up all these positions. You see Sarah on the inside of Simon there as it's now Phil battling alongside the McLaren as drivers are all over the track as they're heading into now sector 3. Bit of a chaotic first lap, but there isn't as much moves as I expected, Midnight.
Yeah, I'm right with you on that. Unfortunately, Simon, I think he lost 5 or 6 positions along that back straight. It just shows you get out of position, you very easily fall back as Tygo. Looks like he's looking for the lead on Gary today. But yeah, good driving from everyone so far. Not seen much in the way of bumping. Good, clean racing here in the blue lobby. And you can see everyone giving each other just the right amount of space, only mild nudges. But around here, that is to be expected on this very street track. But we can see the pack are fighting for every position. Good racing so far, Mac. I'm impressed by all this. And you can see out front, actually, Tygo has taken the lead into turn 1. That must have been a bit of an ambitious manoeuvre to get Gary into there.
And definitely, that turn 1 is not the easiest place to overtake. Of course, it's very difficult because of the fact there's a left-hander, then a right, then a left, straight after each other. And drivers will be taking it kind of semi-flat out. You'll have a bit of a lift-off on new tyres heading into turn 1. And then you're trying to just pin the throttle into turn 2 and a slight lift into turn 3. So when you're side by side like that, very easy to have contact with the other driver just because you're going side by side to tight left and right corners in that first sector. And as well as that, you have the possibility of someone getting slightly offline because of the fact that it's quite a sharp turn, that turn 1, because of the fact the exit gets narrower as you go through the corner. So if you're on the outside, you're nearly heading into the wall just because that corner really narrows up in the exit. We see Tigo has been overtaken by Gary once again, so the position going back to how they were at the start with Gary up in front. But Tigo, bit of contact there as they head into the right-hander, but he's right on the gearbox, GTR driver, with Lee looking at that battle from behind him and he's saying, "You can go ahead and fight, lads. I will try to catch up to you."
Yeah, that looks like Lee is closing in on these two. The last thing you want to be doing when you're fighting, you've got a clear 1-2 between you and your competitor, is then drag in another driver, which Lee is already there. He is known as a bit of a sprint race merchant, and he's proving it again today, up to P2. So Lee taking advantage of the two fighting. Gary losing out when there's 2 places in a couple of corners there. Tygo taking the lead back into that final chicane. But yeah, lead up to P2. Gary down to P3, followed by Sparky, who's having a good race in the McLaren. And then 2 of the admin, Bertie and Ziggy in 5th and 6th. Iceman, 7th, Sarah Hawkey in 8th, fighting with Phil, the other T50 driver. And then Murph and Sicily with Simon, who has fallen off the back of the group at the moment, but putting in some good solid laps at the moment. But we are seeing what it could be a bit of a great battle for the lead here. Lead challenging already.
Yeah, Tigo's looking very fast in that Ferrari 458 right now. We do know that 458 is quite strong at this track. Might not have been the best at deep forest reverse. I know from experience it was not the nicest car to deal with but definitely around Trial Mountain, it is quite quick. The fast exits to get out of these corners, getting onto the straights, definitely make up for the kind of rear end instability, as Lee is now going side by side with the 458 into this nice left-hand hairpin of turn 9. They head through the turn 10, 11, 12 complex now, with Lee now ahead of the 458 driver, that Porsche taking the lead here on lap 3 of the sprint race. You see that top 3 all bunched together, so I'm expecting some really nice battles from those drivers. And then not too far back, of course, is Sparky, Bertie, and Iceman, all in a bit of a 3-way battle. So there's definitely going to be some interesting stuff happening here. It looks like a lot of the drivers quite level on pace right now at this stage of the sprint race.
Yeah, it would seem so. I mean, all of this group is all together. We do have one driver who's fallen off the back, and it's Ziggy. So he's had an incident somewhere. He's fallen from the middle of the pack. But yeah, Lee, Tygo, and Gary look like they're all on very similar pace. And then we have Sparky and Bertie, who was challenging down the back straight for P4. So the two McLarens, must be said, are starting to threaten the top 3. If they continue fighting, what we might do is turn this 3-way battle into a 5-way battle. But we did see in the red lobby, but I'm not going to spoil it for you, the 911 looking particularly punchy this week at Trial Mountain. But we have to be aware, just because one car is particularly fast at the beginning of a race, it doesn't ensure that it's going to be that way all the way through. So a little bit of tactics, even in the sprint race, may still come into play, Mac.
Yeah, of course, and it's great to see the kind of the ups and downs of various cars we go through all the tracks in the calendar. Of course, there's some cars that are phenomenal at deep cars that might not have the upper hand here at Trial Mountain, and it also play into the kind of characteristics of some of the drivers. Some drivers might like an understeering, oversteering car. So when it comes to tire wear, depending on what car they're driving the 458 and they like oversteer, they'll be very happy once those tires start to kind of break in. But then if you're loving understeer as a driver, you're not going to be happy with the 458 starting to oversteer once you get that tire wear. So many drivers would pick certain cars because of those characteristics, but that doesn't mean that all the tracks will make the car do certain things. Like some tracks you might just experience more understeer than oversteer. There might be a few high-speed corners, you're just going to understeer on those worn tires rather than some slow-speed corners to get to the back end of the 458, kind of move out, or some of the other cars that would have that rear tire wear that's more pronounced than some of the other cars like the 911 and NHR. We head onto the straight now. Higo's still keeping with Lee, and Gary just a bit further behind, not as close as the top 2. As you see now, Bertie in P4 in that McLaren. I think he's got ahead of Sparky if I'm not mistaken. So an overtake there.
He has somewhere in the final section, Mac. And you see Sparky run a little bit wide, but Sparky's still running high in P5. He's having a good, solid couple of races, so good to see him there. But one curious thing I have noticed looking around is we are seeing a little bit more tyre wear from Lee in that 911. It's going to leave him a little bit vulnerable on the long left-handers at the end of the race, potentially. But I have to say, at the top 3, Gary's tyres are looking, I'd say, in the best state. But that said, we are on lap 5. It's a long way to go before tyre wear becomes a real big factor. But otherwise, a little bit further down, we can see Sarah Hawkey battling with Phil. I think that is Phil just getting ahead of Sarah coming round out of the left-hander. But Sarah fighting back down the back straight, going for the move into the tight left-hander, thinking better of it, and choosing life come to fight another day. It's always a good thing to see a driver willing to put up a good fight, but knowing when and where to push the advantage and try and go for the position. Which we've seen quite a lot of good races, close races like that in the Blue Lobby this season.
Yeah, definitely. Good to see Sarah in that M6 in 8th position. We know that car had a few difficulties at deep cars. Not sure what the pace might be like here, so we'll see that unfold in the feature race. But yeah, no, that M6 was looking a bit of a handful at deep cars, both the reverse and the normal layout. So good to see her back battling there with some of the drivers. We see some Murph serving a penalty there on the back straight of Supra. As side by side here now. Iceman and Sparky. Sparky dropped behind Birdie there a few moments ago. He stepped in the final sector on the last lap. And now Iceman round the outside. Brilliant move from the Genesis driver. Is now that's going to be Phil on the inside in the G-Score. We got a yellow flag for some reason. Not sure why that's happening. Maybe up in front or behind. But there has been...
Tygo!
He might have had a mistake. Yeah, so front end damage for the 458 driver. Maybe just a bit of understeer out of turn 3, causing him to head into the barrier just before turn for the hairpin in the tunnel. The Iceman into P5, so he's going to be wanting to get up to the back of the 458 driver, who now is damaged. Of course, damage is on light for the sprint races, so that damage will get repaired, but he's still going to bleed time while he's waiting for it to be fixed.
Yeah, having damage at any point during the race is something you do not want. Feels very much like a Will Buxton quote on that one. But at the end of the day, that has released Lee a little bit. It takes the pressure off him, but he's still going to have Gary behind him, who unfortunately didn't have the greatest of weeks last week in our round 6 at Deep Forest Reverse. But that said, it's looking much better this week for him, at least running P2 at the moment. And he's staying out of trouble, but he does have Big Crazy Bertie for company, who's up to P3. And Tygo, have we known, has been quick, although has the incident, is going to be recovering. We know that Ferrari, and Mac, you'll know it especially, to be quite quick around here as well. We do see Iceman and T50 Phil having a battle for it in the final chicane. Looks like Phil does get the better of him in this one, but Iceman in that Genesis X and might come back at him into turn 1.
Head down the straight now. Long straightness, of course. The drivers will have quite a long run up into the first corner. So we just see how those moves play out, as Sparky just behind Sarah now. Sarah getting up to P7 in the M6, so good performance from her right now. Good overtake. The Iceman in P6 not managed to catch back up to the back of Phil. Tigo's got a 5-10 penalty for track limit. Most likely turn 1. If you cut turn 1 too much, you will get a 5-10 penalty, or 1 second, depends how bad the cut was. But look, I'm definitely not speaking from experience. That's just a guess.
I don't know what you're on about now.
Totally didn't get a load of those in the red lobby.
But that never happened to us at all, did it? Please check out the Red Lobby video.
do. It was a very interesting race. You'll have a good time watching that. So make sure you go watch that after Blue Lobby, of course. And Lee in P1 right now, leading the pack. Gary with quite a gap behind, but doing a phenomenal job there in the lead. For 911, as you mentioned, that car seems to be on game this weekend for this race at this track.
I'll tell you what, I'm being impressed at the moment by Iceman. He has confirmed that he's going to be racing most races for the rest of this season. And he does seem to have settled down nicely in this race, running P6, having some good battles, and still on the back of Phil, who obviously started at the back today, thanks to our reverse average point system. And it looks like some good racing here. And it's good to see a lot of this group all still in the same straight. So we've got something right here, and we've got a lot of competitive racing going on today. But as we see, the start of lap 8, Lee is leading us away. He's going to be extremely happy in P1. He likes to be there. And then we've got Gary in P2, Bertie in P3, and Phil in P4, followed by Tygo. So Tygo has fallen down another position, unseen by myself on that one. But Tygo at least looking like he's going to put some good solid points on the board for the sprint race. But maybe not happy finishing off the podium, but at least he'll be happy of the performance running so high for so long at very least. But Matt, I think it's starting to settle down now, but can Lee, with that slightly higher tyre wear, although higher pace, hold on? And then again, can Gary hold on from Bertie? Because Bertie's coming in that McLaren 650S.
Yeah, I was just about to mention Bertie is quite close to the GTR, and in fact he might have a run here into the hairpin. That's Pitchking's doing him wonders as they head down the straight now. He's going to take the outside for turn 9 as the 650S drops back there. Of course, that outside line isn't a favourable one. You want to have that inside, but he's not going to get a good exit as the outside line will get you the best run into the turn 10, 11, 12 section. But Gary just defending there and managed to stay ahead for now. Of course, there's still 2 laps to go on the race. And just to touch base with what you mentioned there with Tigo losing a position, he had that 5-10 penalty from the lap before, which caused him to, of course, have to serve it on the straight, and that let Phil get by. So quite a nice performance from the 2 GTRs here at the front, second and fourth. So we'll be very happy with that, with Phil getting that position. But of course, it's only P2 if Gary can hold on to it.
Well, time will tell, and that time is 2 laps, so about 4 minutes. We can see, as we look down this beautiful long straight, we see a lot of cars not weaving, but definitely trying to break the slipstream from the car behind. We saw it with Iceman, followed by Sarah there. Obviously clearly aware that she's there, and try not to give her any advantage into turn 1. But we do know turn 1 is difficult to pass in, because if you do cut that front apex, then it can be you can very easily pick up a penalty, launch yourself, or, you know, at very worst, take someone out with you. So it can happen. You've got to be careful around a track like this. But at the moment, I don't know, one person not listening to that is Lee. He's just pushing on and going for it. Gary looks like he's gapped Bertie a little bit, and then Bertie looks like he's now going to be coming under threat from Phil. So, fight for P3. We're going to have 2 GTRs in the top 3. It looks like it at the moment, Mac.
Yeah, Bertie made a mistake off of turn 3. He went wide to the grass just like Tigo did, which caused Tigo to drop out of the podium. So that created a big gap to the other GTR of Gary. And now Phil is onto the podium up in a P3. As we head now just the end, the ultimate lap, we've got the 2 GTRs in second and third, and Lee in first in the Porsche. Can Bertie salvage that third position? Can he fight back and take the challenge to Phil?
One wonders. One does wonder. I just spotted Sitterly and Murph having a bit of a fight as well. Murph dropping back. He did have some damage early on. Sparky now fighting with Ziggy as well. So this is a 4-way battle for P8. So there's going to be battles all the way around. But crucially, the 2 GTRs going for it into turn 1. With Phil behind Gary, both the T50 drivers. They're not going to take each other out. They do work together. But they are, as we know from Formula 1 and many other series, papaya rules doesn't mean anything when there's a chance for a podium and grabbing some more points for yourself sometimes, regardless of your teammates.
Yeah, it's funny to mention that we were saying Gary was going to be under threat from Bertie, but now he's under threat from his own teammate. So we'll have to see if there's any team orders here, or if they're going to be allowed to fight just like the McLarens in the first Australian or the first race of the 2025 F1 season. We'll have to see, is there any team orders, or can they fight it into turn 9 on this long straight?
Well, we're going to find out. We've got the 2 GTRs going for second and third, the 2 McLarens going for fourth and fifth. We're going to see one of the GTR drivers, I don't know which one, he's going to... Phil looks like he's taking the inside. Yep, he's got up to P2, followed by Gary, and then just a little bit further back, Bertie has held off Tygo. He must have got a little bit of a scratchy exit off the long left-hander. But out front, it looks like we're going to see Lee hold on to this. His tyres started to look a little bit more second-hand, and Phil is starting to zero in on him now, but he's not going to have enough time. Matt, take this away for the final bit.
Yeah, Lee, honestly, very good race from Lee in the Porsche. He's led a commanding race so far in this sprint, and this is going to set the tone potentially for a feature. Will he be able to recreate this for the next race? But that doesn't matter right now, because Lee's coming up to the line now to finish in P1, with Phil not too far behind, and his fellow T50 teammate Gary in P3. Bertie comes along the line in fourth, with Tigo in fifth. That top 5 so close together, crossing the line. Sarah comes home in a brilliant P6, managing to get past Iceman there at the end for P7. Sidgley comes home in 8th, with Murph in 9th. The 650S of Sparky in 10th position. Ziggy coming home in the AMG in 11th, and Simon just coming to the final sector about now will round off the grid in 12th. That was that was quite the finish there at the line. Though that top 5 was could have gotten, if there's another lap, that could have been quite feisty.
I completely agree on that one. It does look like Phil has had, well, he's come away with the fastest laps. That tells you a lot. He's got through the pack from the back, so he's done damn well on that one. But you could argue Lee's just measured his race there. Jackie Stewart once said, winning a race is all about winning a race in the slowest possible time. Not saying he wasn't going fast, because he damn was, but at the end of the day, Lee has measured his race beautifully on that one, come away with the win. But Phil, very lucky and earning a P2. Gary, that wonderful P3, like you said, and then the two McLaren drivers. Sorry, the McLaren driver of Bertie in P4, and then the Ferrari of Tygo in P5. And yeah, Sarah getting Iceman somewhere on the last lap. She's going to be quite happy with the P6 there. But we didn't see too much from Sicily or Murph in that one. They were having some battles. And we had Ziggy somewhere involved in that as well. But it looked like all good, clean racing from the Blue Lobby sprint race here at Tri-Mountain, Matt. Quite impressive as far as I could see.
It was brilliant stuff. I mean, there were the doubts coming into the race about the street circuit. Of course, it's quite a tight track. You got the very difficult to overtake in the first sector. Of course, you got the very fast S's of turn 1, 2, and 3, and then you just have quite bumpy in that turn 4. The car bottoms out a lot, and it's just there were plenty of overtakes. That long back straight, definitely we saw a load of overtaking opportunities in there. So it just shows quite a nice track. You know, it's one of those ones some people don't drive on that often, but it's produced some amazing racing here for the sprint race.
Yeah, quite right. And as you said, the street track, that first sector is very much follow the leader unless somebody gets something wrong. But the rest of the track, it's all action and all great driving as far as I can see here today. But with that in mind, Lee's wrapped up the sprint win. Can he do the same in the feature? That's the one question I'm going to be having. But with that in mind, let's segue our way over to the qualifying results and then to the feature race itself.
You join us after a very exciting qualifying session, to say the least. And in pole position, we have T50 Phil in that GTR, setting a time of 1:50.392, so astonishingly fast. In P2, keeping him company, we have the other half of T50, and it's Gary with a 1:50.781, so not too far behind Phil. In P3, we have Lee with a 1:51.287. In P4, we have Sparky with a 1:51.491, and in P5 we have Murphy with a 1:51.907. Interesting fact, all of the top 5 runners set their times on the soft tyres, to bear that in mind for the start of the feature race. And in P6 we then have Sicily in that Lexus, setting his time on a medium and getting a 1:52.747. And if I hand over to Midnight, he's going to run through the rest of the grid.
Thank you very much, Sarah. So, right, in P7, we have our very own Ziggy with a 1:52.914. In P8, we have the Iceman. Not Kimi Räikkönen, but it's our own Iceman on that 1:53.147. In P9, we have one half of our co-creators for the series, Sarah Hawkey, in a 1:53.179. And in P10, we have our very own big, crazy Bertie, 1:53.364. And in P11, we have the returning Tygo with a 1:53.494. And in P12, we have our very own Super Simon. Unfortunately, not able to qualify today, but he is here for the racing. So good luck to him out there, but he will be starting from the back of the grid on this one. But sometimes that's exactly what you want in Trial Mountain. Who knows, it might be a killer strategy move. We will find out. But Sarah, those top 5 all qualifying on the soft tyre. It's basically like a 50-50 split here today. We've got the soft tyres at the front, the medium tyres in the other half of the grid. So strategy is going to be key here, and it looks like it's already playing out from qualifying. Sarah.
Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting kind of first stint to the race. Like you say, nearly 50-50 going for the soft tyres. Obviously, the soft tyres might not last a great deal around this track, especially from what we gathered in testing. But it'll be interesting to see how fast they really do get off of the line, because maybe it's pro strategy. Is go as quick as you can from the start, get ahead of all those medium runners, and then the race is your oyster. Really, you can decide to pit whenever, and obviously then go into your second stint and offset from those medium runners. So going to be a few interesting calls for sure during the race, and I'll be keeping an eye out and trying to predict their strategies. But what do you think about the top 5 starting on Susmid though?
I think you've nailed it there. This strategy is going to be absolutely key here. We've seen from testing soft tyres lasting anywhere from 5, as little as 5 laps, up to 9, 10 if you're really conservative. But that is pushing your luck, frankly, at that point. But the medium tyres also, I've seen only last 8 laps for some people, all the way up to 15. So it depends on your own driving style and how you get around the track. But I think we are set up nicely for this. I don't think it's going to be a slow burn race. I think it's going to be 2 packs of cars all coming together, probably at the end, if all strategies play out the same way. And I have to say, Sarah, anyone you're keeping an eye on for this one?
I want to probably keep an eye out on the 2 T50 boys in the Nissan GTRs, because the GTRs are either great or they kind of lack a little bit on the top end speed. So I'll be kind of keeping an eye on how fast they can get off of the line and how they get on during the race. Apart from them, I'll probably say maybe Lee. Obviously he is pretty good at the sprint races, but obviously the feature race with the strategy, sometimes he does get a little bit unlucky, but starting in P3, that will set him up pretty good for the feature race, especially that first stint. But again, very similar to other grids, it could be anyone's game here, as you can see with the qualifying times, especially the top 5 into P6, they are very close to each other. So if that's anything to go by, I think we're in for an amazing race.
Couldn't agree more. I'm going to say I agree with you. The T50 lads absolutely keep an eye on. Even Lee has performed very admirably there, and Sparky as well, not far off. So very good showing. But my eyes are going to be going to the medium runners of Sitterly and Ziggy in this one. Both drivers very much on a good run of form, so hopefully that can translate into a good first stint. And all they have to do is somewhat be cautious in the first stint and then see how their strategy unfolds. But with that in mind, Sarah, I'm getting itchy for this one. I think it's race time.
I agree.
Well, let's hand over to the commentators and enjoy the feature race for the Blue Lobby here at Trial Mountain.
And we are now back at Trial Mountain here for the feature race. It's lights out and away we go. Phil on pole with Gary alongside him. The 2 T50 drivers in the GTR lead the pack out as they head now into turn 1 in a few moments. There's drivers going double file now into this first corner. We'll have to see how that works out. It seems everyone getting through all right. Pack kind of standing out into single file towards the back as Sparky and Lee are side by side. 650S versus the 911. 911 on the inside line, but Sparky's going to have the exit on that outside, and he's going to be side by side with him now. They head into the right-hander of turn 5, and it looks like Sparky's going to get the upper hand there and get up into P3. Throughout the rest of the pack, it's all single file, all lovely jubbly as they're heading into this twisty and tight sector 2 just before this long back straight as Sparky and Lee are side by side again, and Lee manages to get ahead after Sparky picks up a bit of dirt there. So not getting the best of exits. A bit tight, I'd say, just maybe a bit of wheel banging. The 2 is Vigo and Murphy are side by side on the straight. That Super is going to have a good bit of straight line speed, but Vigo is going to have that outside line and might get the exit on the Super driver. They're going side by side to turn 9. Vigo doesn't get that exit speed, but But it's still side by side. They head through the S. It's very difficult to go side by side there. So he feeds and gives up that position to Murph. As up the front, it's still the same as the start. You can see Phil in first and Gary in second. Two T50 drivers locking out that front row in qualifying. And certainly in P5 doing very well in the Lexus. Just trailing Sparky as that top 5 close together once again. As top 7 even, all fairly even Stevens. So an interesting first lap there at midnight, very clean, and kind of not much change in position, but there were a few battles.
Definitely a few battles there. Did notice Lee might have just pushed Sparky a little bit wide. It might be one for the stewards afterwards into the tunnel section, but however, both drivers getting away with it without any damage, so the stewards might look upon that quite favourably. But I have to say, Sitterly, the lead driver on those medium tyres, you can see he hasn't got quite the grips here Murphy's got behind him, but Sitterly looking pretty at the moment in P5. Now Murphy's got ahead of Tygo, he looks like he's after another victim now. But you have to say, out front, Phil looks like he's trying to disappear on those soft tyres, followed by Gary. Lee in a repeat of the sprint, running high in the podium position at the moment. And again, Sparky, Sisley, now Murphy's making a move. I can see Ziggy pulling out from Sarah's slipstream earlier on, but no move going to be happening there. But here we go, Murph down into the tight left-hander, into the forest section. Did the move on Tygo a lap ago. Looks like he's up to P5. Yep, move complete. Now, next victim, Sparky ahead of him. So looks like Murph is recovering more than anything from a little bit of a awkward first lap. So we've now got all the soft tyre runners in the top 5 again. But now we're at that point where the race will start to settle down a little bit, and we should see what the strategy is going to play out like. I don't like sort of strategy straight away in lap 2 going into lap 3, but it is key around here. The tyre wear, Mac, it's quite aggressive around here, particularly if you're on a car that wears the front tyres, because that front right is eaten up very quickly, don't you think?
Yeah, definitely. It's important to hit the ground running on those soft tyres because the tyre wear is so high, and of course Murph won't be happy with losing those positions to start and having to fight his way through the field again. We know that the top 5 started on the soft tyres, so they all want to get out front, use the pace up as quickly as possible, and just try and get as many laps out of those soft tyres as they can, just because of the fact that most likely they'll go on to the mediums for the rest of the race. Because predicting soft last about 7-8 laps at most, I'd say. As we saw Murph, I think maybe getting just a bit of oversteer on that. Let's certainly get back on, but certainly does have that 5-10 penalty, so we'll have to serve that. And Vigo had to serve his 5-10 penalty, which dropped him behind Sarah, who's now ahead in the M6. But that tyre wear, as you mentioned, tyre wear very important, and it's very bad around this track. For most cars, it will be the front tyres that wear the fastest, but for some of the, like for example, the cars like the 458, the rears will start to wear because of the fact you're going through the first sector, those fast corners, the car sliding out from underneath you, it gets those rear tires very worn very quickly. The mid-rear cars will see the tires on the rear wear faster, whereas the F4 cars will have the front wearing pretty badly, as Sparky's still holding off Murph, not Murph, yeah, Murph is the car, not the car he's driving, it's a different car, but Murph is unfortunately not able to get past Sparky as of now, and does have Stirley right on his tail.
Yeah, don't worry, I make mistakes like that all the time. And in Red Lobby, we've got Mercedes driving the Porsche, known as Team BMW on Twitch, so that's also to keep you guessing. Yeah, it looks like this fight between these three, Sparky and Murph, not Merc, and Sisley serving his half-second penalty, falling a little bit back now. They're going to be happy for that in the top 5. It looks like this battle will continue for a while, but it's going to start coming down to tyre wear at this point. And Tygo and Sarah having a do-or-die battle. Tygo getting past Sarah somewhere in the final sector. Looks like the medium runners are going to start to come into their own at this point. We've seen Tygo, he's gone round. Yeah, we have lost Tygo around turn 2 or 3 into the into tunnel, but no damage. So losing control of the back end on that one. That's unfortunate. And he's going to have dirty tyres for a couple of corners. He's going to have to gather it up, Matt. And what's he got to do now? He's just got to refocus and get off down the road, because it's still very, very early in this race.
Yeah, definitely. It's good that he didn't get damaged because he's on those medium tyres. If he's on the soft, if he had damage, say, okay, I can ride it out a few laps to pit. But if you're on those mediums, you're going to be going to about a lap 15 or 15. So good that he didn't get damaged. Doesn't mean he has to stop immediately. So he can just keep going on those mediums, keep going until when he needs to stop, and not bleed that extra time that you have to make, potentially making an extra pit stop. So he just has to keep his head down, get after the drivers that are now in front of him, that is passing. He's spun out on turn 3. Same kind of incident in the sprint race. The sprint race, he had lost a lot of time in turn 3 going wide. Very easy to do, as we see Sparky going wide as well. Just as I mentioned, going wide, probably might have heard me in the comments box. I don't know if he heard me all the way from turn 13, but yeah, going wide onto turn 3, Tigo did, and just losing time. And this time spinning round, didn't do that in the sprint, just one round. Unfortunately, the 458 doesn't like grass. I can tell you that much. Prefers the lovely tarmac. And Sparky and Murphy side by side now on the straight. The Supra versus the 650S. I think Sidley maybe bumped draft this starter. I'm not sure. Very close to the gearbox, anyways. And we'll be trying to go around the outside, and gets it done just about keeping it out of the grass. You saw I got very close to the white lines there. And a good overtake from Sidley round the outside, and good overtake from Murphy. Get ahead of Sparky. Now lost 2 positions, and it's down to 6th.
Yeah, that looks quite clever by Sidley there, using Murph as a bit of a blocker, using the Supra to get past Sparky. Sparky getting out of the throttle, as we see Tiger having another moment in the first sector. Same corner again, Mac, there. But it looks like Sidley played that beautifully. He's looking like he's in a very handy position now that those medium tyres will start really coming to their own anytime now. Sparky choosing life, and I think he put up a very valiant fight there against Murph. We know how quick that Supra is, particularly in a straight line, and yeah, Sparky holding off Murph for a good couple of laps there. We're a good little battle. Sorry for the highlight reel. But that's, about to say tyre wear. There we go, 5 laps. Look at that front right on that Porsche.
Is brutal. I don't think I've seen as much tyre wear. That's like he's playing on a different tyre wear rate to everybody else. If you look at all the other cars, you can see they've only got about half or 75% on that front right. You can see there, Murph, for example, about half worn on the front right tyre, but Lee, that Porsche, we know it's not good on fuel or tyres, and that's just being proved right there. And just one thing I want to mention about Sidley, doing a valiant effort here, now in P4 because of that pit stop from Lee, but doing very well on those medium tyres to break into that top 5 that are all on the soft, and getting past Sparky, who's on the soft also, is a very good effort from the electric drivers. We see Bertie under pressure from Ziggy, 650S, and the Mercedes.
They're teammates as well, Max. So this is a battle of pride between these two.
Yeah, definitely. We know that the 650S is going to be good when it comes to the strategy. Good on fuel, good on tires, very economical, and the same goes for the AMG. Not as much as the 650S, but it is one of those cars that is very good at saving tires and fuel. So they will be riding out those medium tires and trying to get that as long as possible, so that they can have the shortest off tire sprint towards the end of the race, because there's little tire wear on those softs as you can, just so you can maximize performance. Look to the front now, it's still the 2 GTRs leading the pack out in first and second, but Murph now inheriting 3rd position after getting up that position after the pit stop from Lee, as it looks like he's gotten damaged somewhere, and it's now dropped the position to Sparky. That damage is going to affect him. I mentioned that Tigo was lucky to not get damage on that first spin on the medians, and that means Sidley is going to have to carry that damage until he stops, which won't be for another 8 or 9 laps.
Well, that is, Mac, unless he goes to... I think Lee is going to be on a free stop strategy. I mean, the Murph comes in. That's it. Well, to be fair, actually, I'm going to change my mind on that one. That it's not super early, but Ziggy does get past Bertie, so the teammate swaps on positions. And we've got Sarah on the back of Iceman as well, who I will just state very quickly also had a little bit of a jump start, so that's why he's fallen through the pack a little bit, but coming under pressure from Sarah coming into turn 1. But we'll hold on for that battle for the rest of this lap. But sorry, going back a couple of little jots there. Yes, Sitaly. Yeah. Will he go another 8 laps for that damage, Matt? That'd be my question. Or does he flick the strategy, roll the dice a little bit, get rid of the damage? Because you're at that sort of catch-22 at this point. Do you pick, get rid of the damage, go faster with a new set of tyres, or stick to the strategy? It's always, you're in no man's land when you're halfway through a stint, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, it's something you can't really predict for. It's just a case of if you have to spin, you just have to come to that decision when it happens. Clearly, is going to have a good exit onto this straight. It means the is party, but that damage will be making him bleed a bit of time, and you see it barely catching the 650S. That damage is really affecting the straight line speed of that car, and just not able to gain any time in the slipstream of Sparky. You can see he's trying the outside now, trying to get that exit, just not managing to do it, getting a bit of oversteer off the curb, and will stay in P4 for now. Will be interesting. We'll have to watch certainly on whether he'll pit. Let's see Phil dive into the pit lane, and so does his T50 teammate Gary. So the 2 GTRs in the pit lane. Sparky has a bit left in that front right tire, but you have to wonder, will he pit? He will indeed. So the top 3 now in the pit lane.
Yeah, and it's a fairly long pit lane around here as well. So, yeah, 7 laps is the best even a McLaren driver could get around here on those soft tyres. That would give us a good eye-in for later on. I will say, once you've got less fuel, you can generally squeeze in an extra lap or so, but I'm going to say a maximum 8 laps for soft, so that gives us a hint of what's going to be going on for strategy here today. But Sarah has, in fact, got past Iceman. So it's somewhere in the middle of the lap, I would imagine, down the back straight. Sarah getting that pass done up to P2. She's going to be very happy with that one. And Iceman running P3 at the moment, with Ziggy in tow in P4, followed by his teammate Bertie P5. Lee jumping the lot of them in P6, but I don't think he took on any fuel, but he definitely got rid of those horridly, well, flat, soft tyres. So he's going to be... He's got to be on a 3, even a 4 stop. An aggressive strategy from Lee. But it worked from in the sprint. But you can see Phil, full tank of fuel, running P7, probably our net leader. Followed by Tygo, who I would imagine he is still recovering from those 2 spins. It doesn't look like he has stopped yet. But he's not going to be entirely happy being behind the net leader after only 8 laps and no pit stop, so unfortunate for Tygo on that one. But out front, I think the question is for us, Sitaly, when does he come in? Does he come in? Does he keep to the plan? So many questions.
But from what we can see right now, just look like he's going to stay out for now. Whether he'll change his mind, I mean, it's that phase where it's like, either you commit to your strategy even with the damage, or you just box now, because like there's no point in boxing at like 4 or 5 laps. You already bled time from the damage, and you just cut your stint like 4 laps short. So it's like, you know, you just have to do it when you initially get the damage. There's no point in changing your mind. You just lose more time by doing that, or you just mess your strategy up even more than it already has been kind of jumbled around because of the damage. As particularly, of course, is in the lead with Sarah in second and Iceman in third. We're still yet to make their stops on those medium tyres. We're not looking too bad for them right now, as I think Ziggy, just to point out, if we watch Ziggy, I think Ziggy does have some damage, so literally, and Ziggy carrying damage right now on both that medium, so not ideal for the 2 of them. But it does look like it's not really affecting Ziggy's pace too much, as he is kind of in touching distance of Iceman. Maybe like he'll get moved. Of course, we saw how bad that straight line speed was in the Lexus when Ziggy was trying to catch the Sparky, so I'm sure Ziggy will have an easy time trying to get past the
I guess we'll see. Yeah, it's going to be touch and go. The one thing I am spotting out there is maybe Bertie, who's known as a bit of a tyre whisperer and and he sips his fuel a little bit. I think he might be on for a one stop at this point. He is kind of nailing the fuel at the moment, so I'm sure we're seeing some free stops. Definitely going to see the odd two stop. Could we see a one stop from Bertie going completely opposite strategy? I guess time will tell. And I do think out front, with that damage, Sidley is being homed in on by Sarah.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for Sidley, but we'll see if it's just a temporary burst of pace for Sarah, or if it is actually an issue that's going to plague Sidley's stint for now. Just to go back to what you mentioned about Bertie, of course, he could do a one-stop, but the only trade-off of that is that his next stint would probably have to be on the hard tyres, since you have to take 2 different compounds in this race. Of course, he's fulfill the mediums, and he'd have to fulfill either the soft or the hards. Now, I know you said Bertie might be a tyre whisperer. I don't think he'd get the softs after the race, so would have to probably go for the hard tyres.
I agree with you.
We know how hit or miss the hard tyres can be. We know they've been good at tracks sometimes like Autopolis, and then they've been pretty much like driving on an ice rink at other tracks. So it's a question of whether that's worth the risk.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that one, as Tiger does come in for his pit stop. Yeah, so he'll be getting off those medium tyres and maybe some extra fuel as well. Yeah, it's going to be tricky for Bertie, but I think the possibility is there. And one thing I will say is, if you ever see me on hard tyres in the Mclaren, something's gone wrong, because the Mclaren does not like those hard tyres at all. You can see Ziggy, he's still fighting Iceman. It does look like Iceman is struggling with a little bit more tyre wear, not significant, but enough to become a bit of a problem at what I would say is probably 2/3 the way through a stint. But Ziggy's still being handicapped by that front end aero damage, which will invariably slow him up on the straight. But now he's dragging Bertie with him, so he'll be thinking, oh, free slipstream, free saving fuel. So keep an eye on Bertie. You might see that one stop still appear if he can deal with those hard tyres. But out front, I'm still keeping an eye. Sarah's still homing in on Sidley. Looks like they're both going to go the distance, I would imagine, on a 2-stop. Probably for, oh wait, I'll shut up. There comes Sidley. He's changing strategy. That will leave Sarah Hawkey out in the lead. And Iceman pits too. So that is interesting. So Iceman from P5, Sidley from the lead, both pitting. So that does leave us with an admin, a co-career out in the lead, an admin in P2, and an admin in P3. I promise this is not rigged. But we do see in P4, Phil has caught and passed Lee. So Phil showing his raw pace and getting back up into that, what I will say is still net lead now.
Yes, so Lee is, of course, on that kind of all strategy, say, is trying to fulfill a 3-stop, or most likely 3-stop. Although I will mention this tyre wear isn't looking the worst right now, but I know that Porsche, it eats up those tyres, pretty much the polar opposite of the 650S that Bertie's driving. Is just look, it looked really fast in the sprint race, but it's not the best tyres. It makes you wonder, we need a bot for like tyre wear, because it can vary so much between some of these cars, and it's just a trade-off you have to make when you choose a car. Do you want good pace and bad tyre wear, or do you want bad pace and good tyre wear? Who knows?
It's always a bit of a tricky situation, particularly when it comes to choosing your car beginning of the season. We're going to go through races where some of these cars are either not particularly good at the top speed, the tyre wear, but that is why we go to a variety of tracks, a variety of bot specifications, and you do get these topsy-turvy races, particularly when sometimes the car has more influence, sometimes the driver does, but that's why we like it now. And at the moment, Trial Mountain, I think, is delivering here, particularly in the blue lobby.
Yeah, I'd say I agree. I mean, I think before the red lobby race, I have not driven this track that much, which you should totally go watch the red lobby race. It was a very, very lovely race with those drivers, but the the track is quite nice. I have to say, lovely. I love the Sector 1. Like, I wasn't a fan of it originally. You know, it's very fast, and the 458 that I'm driving for this season was a bit, like, squirrely sometimes. But once you get it right, it's very satisfying, and it's, honestly, there's a good few overtaking spots on the track, and I didn't really expect that. I mean, you've got the long back straight, and I didn't realize how much that back straight made a difference heading into turn 9. Because there was a lot of overtakes into turn 9 in this race and the Red Lobby race. And even just throughout the first sector, you can go side by side into the first sector. We've seen already today. We saw Sitterly around the outside into turn 1. A lot of overtaking opportunities, and I have to say it's been quite entertaining to watch the drivers drive around here.
Yeah, quite right. And then, as we have discussed, it is possible to go side by side, particularly in Sector 1. But you have to really trust the person you're going up racing with. And so far, so good for all of the drivers here today. And at the moment, still running all races. We do have Simon, who is in P12 with a little bit of damage. But this is the first time that he has ever been here, so a little bit of a shock to the system this track, but he's doing alright. He's on the back of Tygo at the moment, who has switched to the hard tyre. So that is an interesting call, but Matt, maybe you can give us an insight on what you think the Ferrari's like on hard tyres at this track.
I had a lot of experience with games being on hard tyres because I made a lot of bad with some of the races, but I haven't made any of those decisions with the 458 yet. As you probably know if you've watched the Deep Forest Red Lobby videos, I switched to the 458 for this season, and I'm having a good fun in it, but I actually haven't ran the hard tyres ever on that car, so I do know that the car, we all know the car is quite oversteery, quite punishing on the rears, but the hards introduced understeer. So maybe it's like yin and yang. Yin yang, is that what it is? I don't remember what the thing is, where it's like oversteer is counteracted by the understeer the hards. Who knows? I'm sure Tigo will know.
Well, I'm sure he's experiencing all of it all at once at the moment. It's when you have understeer and oversteer at the same time, or otherwise known as a slide into the wall, which then you've got to worry about it. But one thing Bertie's going to be worried about now is our, I'd say, net leader, Phil, who's got rid of those soft tyres for the race, is bearing down in P4. But with the speed that Phil is displaying at the moment, I think the question would be, does he need to push and try and risk an overtake on this tricky track? Or can he just sit there, save a bit of fuel, sit in the slipstream and play the long game? Or Matt, do you just go sod it and send it, lick the stamp and send it?
Well, you're trying to save tyres at this stage of the race because you're trying to, I mean, some people are going for the 3-stop, you preferably want 2-stop if you can. So you want to save those tyres, you don't want to burn them up. You're trying to, well, say if Tigo's having another spin in turn 3 and it's got a 5-10 penalty to 8 tyres worth for him. Those hard tyres still not treating him well. As I mentioned, you want to, as we see, is Sarah gone around? I believe that is Sarah who's had a spin. So yeah, you see the front right on that car is not doing the best. So maybe understeered off track and getting to the grass for a bit and spinning the car around, unfortunately. But back to what I was saying before, I was interrupted like 2 spins at the same time. He's going to want to get past him. He doesn't want to just sit behind and burn his tires up, but he wants to do it in a way that doesn't affect him too much. Something like that, with Bertie going onto the grass, would be good for him because he can get up to the back of Bertie and hopefully send a move. Maybe into turn 5 if he has the grip, or maybe hold off into the long straight. Just whatever costs him as little time as possible would be preferable. But if he wants to send it, he can. I mean, free will. You can send it on him if he wants, but I'd say he's a smart man. I think he knows what he's doing.
Quite right. And we did see, just saw the trail end of that. Yeah, I think you're right. Sarah understeered and then lost the back end trying to recover the car in the final corner. But she's now got Lee for company, going for P4, but out in P2. Phil looks like he's just sitting there. I think he's saving fuel, Mac. I think he's choosing to do it on purpose. But yeah, Sarah has held off Lee, But I don't think it's going to be too long before we're going to see that M6 in the pits. As Lee's got so much more grip. That came from nowhere. They are going side by side through these corners. Now that's ambitious for the pair. A little bit of swap and paint. Nothing too untoward, as the NASCAR lot would say, rubbing is racing. But Lee does have what I think is the apex of the next corner, and the brakes and the tyres. So yeah, Lee getting that pass done. Is he coming in the pits again?
Yeah, he's got barely enough fuel.
He does. And we do see Ziggy in the same predicament. He's not making that way around. And that does unleash Bertie into the lead, followed by Phil, who I'm sure at this point is tyre and fuel saving. Sarah back up to P3. So that would, to me, at least put Bertie and Sarah on a 2-stop each. Bertie... he's going to have to wring the neck of those medium tyres if he's going to get another 3 laps out of them. But it's possible. Fuel is going to be more the issue with him. And then Sarah, yeah, she's going to probably be in this lap. She's got now Gary, who's appeared from nowhere, and all over the back of her in the middle sector.
Yeah, it looks like you can just see how good Birdie is in that 650S with conserving the tyres and the fuel. Like, I'd say I think about 15% of fuel left in that car, or Sarah has about 2%. So that 650S will be able to make it around, I'd say, another 2 or 3 laps. So maybe might be able to fulfill that kind of criteria for getting a 1-stop in. But that all depends. Birdie would have to do a bit of fuel saving that last stint, I'd say. Because if you think about it, about halfway would be, if he was pitting now, he'd have to do about 20 laps or so on the hard tyres, which would be a stretch with the fuel. Now I know that 650S is good on fuel, but I wouldn't be trusting it too much. You'd have to do a lot of short shifting and lifting and coasting, which might just hurt his time even more if those hards aren't too good. He'd be weighing up those options right now in the car anyways, so I'm sure we'll see once he comes to the pit whether he is going to opt for that 1-stop or if he's going to go for it.
Yeah, it's at that point where I think we're going to see Sarah. Yeah, Sarah into the pits. Bertie's at that point where he's got to choose a strategy. Everyone around him, he's going to be the last one to pit. He's going to be at risk of an undercut if he doesn't go. If he goes for a 2-stopper with a very long first stint, he's going to be undercut quite severely. Or does he go for those hard tyres early and go to the end? But then you're at that crucial point. Do you drive around at 90% and everywhere, saving fuel, saving tyres, at the risk of people just going counter strategy like we have Lee currently sitting P8, but we know he's on a very fast car. So it's a tricky one around this track. It's not one we've done too much mileage at, but it's presenting a few problems, particularly on the strategy side. And Sarah has made her pit stop, refueling, and it's going to be interesting to see if she goes for another full tank and medium tyres, or goes for a half tank and softs. Because as you mentioned earlier, Matt, all drivers do have to run 2 sets of different compound tyres. But with that in mind, Phil sitting behind Bertie in P2, Gary in P3. I think these two are fairly solidly net out front here. But remains to be seen if they're on a 2 or 3 stop. Thinking 2. But Sparky has picked up some damage, Matt. And it always seems to be that front right round here. It seems to be like coming out of that long left-hander before the back straight. Easy place to drop it around here.
Yeah, we've seen a few drivers on the first lap picking up dust there, and as well just the front right, we've seen they have the most wear. Most corners on this track are left-handers, of course, and they're very fast left-handers, some of them. So probably I'd say you're about right. That corner just before the back straight, quite tight. It's hard to judge where to accelerate. Very easy to get damage off of it. But one thing I want to mention as well is that after the pit stop, Birdie would be in P3, which was not too bad considering Murph, who was right on the tail of him at the beginning of this race, is in 6th and literally in 5th behind. So managing to jump them under the pit stop. Is that because he's taking a bit less fuel and he's just trying to do a bit of a different strategy? We'll find out towards the end of the race, but not too bad for the McLaren 650S driver. Birdie is getting quite critical on fuel, so he'll be coming in, I'd say at the end of this lap. I don't think he's going to get another lap on that fuel tank. So that would be the end of lap 17, and if you do your quick math, you will know that 17 times 2 does not equal 37, it equals 34. We'd have to get 3 more laps nearly of fuel on the last few laps, or for the last stint, in order to make it again. So I think it's feasible, but he'll have to keep a lot of conserving. If you wonder then, just fast to do a boost stop.
I have to wait and see, but I think, yeah, that one stop is starting to look a little bit more treacherous. I think he's going to have to go for the 2 stop, and I think Phil, he has now gone into the lead, but one would assume he has seen Gary closing in on him, and he's decided to pull the cord now and go for it. So Phil back into the lead, and I imagine Bertie, yeah, into the pits. That was to be expected, as that releases both the T50 gents out into P1 and P2. But the question is, where will Bertie filter back out of? I mean, he's still got to run either hard or soft tyres here today, which, let's face it, he's probably going to go mediums now, or well, he could easily go softs, but he's going to still have to run at least the mediums again at some point. So we're going to see what Bertie feeds out of in a minute as he comes into the pits. We're not seeing any battles in particular on track at the moment. Lee and Ziggy are the closest pair together. Ziggy serving a half-second penalty at the beginning of this lap. So we've seen some strong drives, particularly from the unlimited Motorsports driver today, particularly with that sprint win. But he's not shaking off Ziggy in that AMG. He's finally getting used to that AMG, Mac, and he's enjoying his racing again, Ziggy. But I think we're going to see his teammate come out of the pits just behind him. So yes, Bertie has been undercut by a lot of drivers. I mean, from Sparky, Sisley, Murph, Lee and Ziggy at the moment. Where does that put Sarah? She is behind Bertie at the moment, but we did know that Bertie was so good on fuel, we had to barely, I say barely, he had to take on far less than some other drivers around him. So good tactical awareness of Bertie, but it hasn't worked out for him yet. We'll see how the final sync goes from later on. Maybe that's what he's aiming at.
He looks like he's taking on full tank of fuel, so 100% fuel for Birdie on the medium tires, which that's what I originally thought he was going to go on the hard. We do know that more fuel you have, the worse the tire wear. When you get to the lower fuel, you're able to go a bit faster and you're able to take a bit of stress off those tires. But it's going to be interesting because you do want to lengthen this phase right now, this medium. Now he's gone quite a bit. You do want to maximize this medium as much as you can, because it takes pressure off of you for the last stint when you're on the softs, because you want as little laps on those soft tires as you can, just because of the fact that the tire wear is so high on the soft, which you will have less fuel, make an extra 1 or 2 laps. You don't want to get caught out with having 9 or 10 laps to go and you've soft tires and you have to really post at home for the last lap. Just one thing I want to point out as well, particularly in Alex on hard tires, we do have someone running the hard tires apart from Tigo. We saw Tigo on the hards earlier in the 458. Of course, he had a few spins and stuff, but he's on the hard tires, so good on him in the 4th position behind Sparky and ahead of Lee. So the battles have kind of fizzled out for now, while Murphy hits. Not well, they haven't fizzled out because Murphy hits, because they fizzled out just because we're getting into the kind of strategic part of this race. People are trying to save fuel, good bit of gaps between people, and we'll see after these next pit stops, people blows up to each other.
Iceman also running the hard tyres, so that's at least 2 drivers out there, 3 including Tygo, who I've been informed has retired. But when you get 2 or 3 spins in a row on the same corner, a couple of laps apart, sometimes it is that mentality you need to give the race a break and then come back strong for next round. So we'll hope to see Tygo in Road Atlanta for round 8. Yeah, we are seeing the use of hard tyres around here. In testing, it wasn't particularly clear we're going to see the use of the hard tyres, but today it looks like a lot of drivers are preferring it almost. And I definitely can see a lot of tyre wear on that GTR of Phil and Gary. They're only a few seconds apart at this point. I think even they might be looking at a free stop at this point. It's that sort of cusp mark, isn't it? And Sitterly, he's definitely only looking at another 1 stopper. I'm not sure he's going to be close enough to the T50 lads, but yeah, I'm starting to think that the GTRs out front, they're on a free stopper.
Not necessarily, because these guys were on the soft at the start of the race. They're kind of a bit like, I know at the Red Lobby we didn't see as many start on the soft, which you would probably see in the replay. I started on the medium personally, and they hit it about lap 6 or 7. We saw the earliest being on lap 5. So I'd say they could eke out maybe another 2 or 3 laps the stint, which would put them about 15-16 laps in the mediums, which, I mean, if you think about it, you might get 15 or 16 laps on the mediums towards the end. You will have less fuel as well, because you're going to be putting in as much fuel as you need to get to the end of the race. So I think it could be possible still do a 2-stop. I wouldn't rule it out, but if the drivers feel that they would be quicker on a 3-stop, then that's up to them.
Well, I think the options there, at least, we have the 2 extra points for the fastest lap as well. I mean, if you're, say, particularly Gary, I would wait 2 laps to the end. If you've got a gap behind you to, say, Sicily of about 20 seconds, you'd be thinking pit for soft tyres and steal that fastest lap off Phil. 2 points to 2 points at the end of the day. You are right, less fuel, a little bit cooler in the air. We're now into definitely evening territory. Those tyres, as long as you treat them well, should survive a good 16 laps. And they're getting into that area, so I think they're going to have to just be a little bit conservative. Or you can go the opposite. You can go another set of softs, 2 softs. But then again, you run the added problem of that extra pit stop time. But again, you might pick up 2 points for the fastest lap. All that strategic interest that we have to think about as racing drivers here in the F1 RST Championship. It looks like there is a bit of a battle brewing, Mac, between the freshly new booted Bertie and our very own Sarah Hawkey.
Yeah, right now, gap is about 2 seconds, but Bertie is going to be closing up on the back of Sarah. Of course, actually, one thing to mention, I'm pretty sure as Sarah came out behind Bertie.
So did Bertie
make a mistake, potentially?
He has dropped some time, actually. Yeah, you are correct. Maybe he's had a spin.
Because I remember you mentioning when Bertie came out of the pits that Sarah was just out behind. So maybe Bertie had a bit of a spin, as you mentioned, or just had it off. We've seen Tigo have that spin in turn 3. Maybe had a spin there, or maybe it was turn 9 with the hairpin, something like that. And we don't know. I guess history forever. But Bertie will be wanting to get back in that position, and has a bit less tyre wear than Sarah, but it'll be down to his outright pace whether he'll be able to catch back up to that. So you can see on the straight here now, it's still about the same gap between them. Heading into turn 9, 4, nice twisty turn 10 and 11.
Oh, bit of a hit there on the old wall. Got away with it. Which is why we're seeing so much damage on the front right of these cars. It seems like so many of the corners, particularly the right-handers, have a little bit of a concrete strategically located on them. But that's the challenge of the track. You've got to try and avoid it. The one another battle I'm sort of keeping an eye on is the brewing battle, I think, from Lee and Ziggy. Ziggy with a bit more fuel, hustling that AMG with similar tyre wear, so come the next and final pit stop, you might see Ziggy jump Lee for that P4. And I have to say, I am also surprised to see Sicily with that tyre wear on those hards is quite significant as well. So, to be fair, he did start on the mediums. I think that RCF today showing that it's not immune to some high deg, even on those hard tyres, but that is the problem we all have racing around tracks like this, particularly with long left-hand corners. So it's something we've all seen before, we no doubt see it again. We've all got a few tracks like Road Atlanta coming up, and also High Speed Ring. So something to look forward to, Matt. And a lot of the drivers today, I think they're impressing, and definitely running these tyres almost down to the canvas. But you've got to be really careful at this point, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, even if that front right was to go into these fast left and right handers in sector 1, you wouldn't have a nice time. You'd be meeting Barry Orr, let's say. Or you'd be having a bit of a meet and greet in the grass. So it's tough. You have to be kind of reluctant on the throttle, but also as well you just have to play by your instincts. You know, does the car feel like it's going to understeer? Because once that front right goes, you're going to have understeer. If it's the rear right, you'll have oversteer, front right, understeer. So they at least won't be spinning, hopefully. They'll just have a bit of issues turning into the corners. So I just mentioned as well what you're saying about, we of course have Road Atlanta High Speed Ring coming up next. Definitely looking forward to Road Atlanta. That's going to be an interesting one. I believe it's the first time we've raced there.
It is.
It is. So another nice different calendar, and it does look like the mid-rear cars might be quite strong around there. It's that first sector. It's like Mountain. There's lovely S's in the first sector, and it does seem that some of those cars will depend on the kind of the balance in the car, whether you'll be able to get the car turned in through the straight sharp S's. Of course, you want to go as flat out as you can. You will have to lift for some of them, but you want to try the throttle pin to the floor as well.
Yeah, sometimes you have to lift through those S's, which at Road Atlanta there's definitely a set of corners called the S's, which actually accurately describes a lot of the corners I'm looking at right now here at Trial Mountain. So there's going to be a few similarities. You can see a few techniques that drivers have developed here this week for Trial Mountain that they'll be able to take into Road Atlanta, another American special, as T50 Phil comes in for his pit stop, followed by T50 Gary. I have a sneaking suspicion, Mac, we're on the same strategy.
Yeah, I mean, they're teammates, so maybe a bit of communication.
Just possible.
Yeah, so they're going to be heading off of those all-medium tyres, front right completely gone for both of those cars. Pretty much nearly the same tyre wear pattern on both of those cars. So they're going to be refueling now and coming out just in the middle of this, I'd say, or behind it. Yes, he's just crossing the line ahead. So Phil coming out 94% fuel. Will Gary come out with 94 as well? Oh, Gary's going to take just a bit more, going to take a full tank. So both T50 lads come out of the pit lane now on the medium tyres, importantly. So they are going on to that medium set again, and they will have to run 14 laps on them.
Well, I think that proves their intention. They have managed to get that GTR to a window which I think is viable. And neither of them are blinking and going to the soft tyre, even for just funsies for a few laps. At the end of the day, once you are in a commanding position, you can do what you want with strategy. But at the moment, I will say Sicily, he does take up the lead, who is lapping Simon at the moment. So Sicily putting another lap on Simon. Sicily's getting rid of that damage. Going to the hard tyre. He's looked quite impressive here today. That RCF doing what it should be doing, and it's given him all the responses that he needs, and he's not running away with it, but he's sitting in P1, followed by Lee, a few seconds behind, followed by Ziggy. So a little bit of a, I'm not going to say a battle or a train, but cars in reasonably quick succession, very close on the track. And I don't think it's going to be too long. Probably, I'd imagine 2 to 3 laps before we see Sidley in. Same for Lee and same for Ziggy, who's still looking impressive with the most fuel out of the top 3 at the moment. But with Phil and Gary running P4, P5 in quick succession behind. But we do see Sarah in the pit stops has got onto the back of Gary. But Gary doesn't have to fight this one, Sarah has to stop again. Who is dragging, obviously, Bertie with her at this moment. But
Just want to mention, Sarah is putting a bit of pressure on Gary here as we're heading down the straight. Sarah's doing a bit of bump drafting, but Gary is struggling through some of those corners. Now, he does have full fuel, and those tires would have been a bit cold coming out of the pit lane, but just looks like not managing to pull away from the M6 driver that just about got ahead of out of the pits, and it's just kind of, Sarah's just kind of looming there behind the rear wing of the NHR driver, and is giving him a bit of a run for his money.
yeah, she wants to have a little fight, doesn't she? Wants to enjoy herself here today. Running P6, wants to run in P5. But like you say, Gary possibly also struggling with a little bit of tyre warm-up. But a couple of laps in, it looks like it's starting to come in this second sector, only second lap of his tyres. So it looks like he's getting to grip with it now. But out on our net P1, we do have Phil, who is closing in on Ziggy. Do you know what, Matt? I have to say, 25 laps in, it's been impressive from all of these drivers. We've got to have some different, varying amounts of damage, but lots of good, clean action, and people adapting the strategies as and when needed, as dictated by what's happening on track and what their fuel and tyre wear is doing. So all around, quite professional driving out there, I'd say.
Absolutely, and we've seen some good overtakes aside from the strategy as well. So all the drivers look fairly equal on pace, even as well. There was some really good battles at the start. We saw really good battles in the sprint, and the strategies are really unfolding here. We do have Lee on the 3-stop strategy, and then we've got other drivers on the 2-stop. It's still varying strategies, whether people start on softs, the top 5 start on the softs, and then the rest of the field start on mediums. So everyone's just kind of doing their own race right now. And while it might look a bit spread right now, field, it will be a lot closer towards the end once everybody has those final stops overcome.
I'd agree on that. I'd absolutely agree. I do think we've got Phil on for the win here today. Gary probably on for P2, depending on what Sidley can pull out in the final few laps. But that said, I think P3 is still up for contest. Sidley and Ziggy are fairly close together. Again, with Ziggy carrying much more fuel, so he's going to have a much shorter pit stop. So P3 still up for grabs, I think. Who do you think's going to win the battle of the Lexus and the AMG? Who are you going to put your money on?
I'd say
Oh, can you say that again, Matt? I think we lost you there for a sec.
I'd say the Lexus. Apologies. I'd say the Lexus is going for it looks like a fairly strong car, and will be coming into the pits now soon enough. But I'd say that Lexus has got a good bit of speed behind it. I mean, we even saw at the start, Italy was on the medium, and he was challenging the soft one. So there was pace there, even with the differing strategies.
Quite right. I would agree with you. Now, Ziggy, the question is, I don't think he's run the soft tyre yet, has he?
I think so.
So I think he's going to be super fast towards the end, but he's going to have to get that AMG into a zone where he's going to get at least 7 or 8 laps out of it, and those tyres are already looking a little bit second hand. So do you know what, I think I'm following you. I think Sidley is looking at P3 at the moment as he's in the pits, probably going to medium tyres for 10 laps. I would imagine so, because hasn't had the greatest of tyre life in that RCF. He's made it work. What does he go to? Mediums. Yeah, that's to the end, Mac. So it's up to Ziggy now to have a good, short, sharp pit stop and get out there in front of Sisley, or very least challenge him. But somewhere, Phil has retaken the lead. He's gotten past Ziggy. So that does leave our GTR driver in P1. It's been pretty impressive from these GTR boys today, Matt.
Yeah, definitely. They've looked fairly competitive even from the start. I mean, they got that front row lockout in qualifying. The two T50 drivers, and I mean, they've shown some really good pace today. Phil was kind of fuel and tire saving behind Birdie, was caught back up to him, and that was about as close as they were before the pit stops, and they're just still carrying that speed throughout the race. They had qualifying and making most of it, and I mean, you can see that today with the net first and second positions.
Another driver who I have to give a little bit of praise, one of our co-founders, Sarah Hawkey, running in P4 at the moment, still got a pit stop to go, but so has Bertie, one of our admin, behind her, so those two are going to be battling to the end. And we do have Sparky, who's out there, I think is going to the end, so I do think we're going to see a battle, particularly between Sarah, Bertie and Sparky when things all unfold. Even then, we have Lee out there, who we know has been quick, the sprint race winner. So I think there's this race is still coming together, Matt. It's a slow burn, this one. Oh, Murph with some damage and a penalty, so that's unfortunate for him. But yeah, this is a slow burn. I think the last 3 or 4 laps are going to be a bit spicy, Mac.
Well, it's including your battle prediction there with Sarah, Bertie and Sparky. There's going to be Sitterly as well, because Sitterly's just come out of the pits right behind Sparky by about 5 seconds. So once those tyres fire up, you see right there, they're going into the same corner about 4 or 5 seconds apart. They will be fighting for that position, and they will be traveling together to take the fight to Bertie and Sarah once they make their pit stop.
Just to be worth saying that Sarah is probably, and Ziggy also, maybe even Bertie, also going to the soft tyre. So they're going to be rapid at the end. So keep an eye out on that fastest lap, which at the moment stands at 1 minute 51.572, held by Phil. Ziggy's going to be wanting that pit stop to come quickly. His front right is dying. Matt, we've both been there, and I'm going to let a little red lobby secret out now. Again, watch the video. During the race, my front right tyre did hit the canvas, and it is horrible. It's not something you can easily drive around with this current physics set.
Don't worry, I lost fuel in the Deep Forest reverse anyways, so we go 1 for 1 in strategy mess ups. Well, yeah, no, back in like season 2 or season 3, different physics at the time, you were able to run all the tires nearly to red and you'd still be able to drive the car. I mean, we used to see it every race. We'd have drivers that would have red front rights and red front left, and they're still out on the track because it's way faster than going onto a tire like the hards or the mediums, to be running the soft for about 15 laps with that. But now it's not like that anymore. Once one of those tires goes, it feels like you got like a flat or something. It's horrendous, especially on the rear. I got a rear tire going full red in one of the Deep Forest races, and fortunately the commentary did not pick up my spin. But now you know I spun in that race and I lost the position to Kai. But I had a big spin. But yeah, no, it's brutal.
Was that in the reverse one by chance?
Yes, it was.
We wondered why you lost about 10 seconds.
Yeah, you could see someone on the track map just going through a loop-to-loop and then just get back on the track and end in the pit lane. That was me. If you go just before my first pit stop, if you go to the commentary, you will see someone spin around and go into the pit lane. That's me. as we see Sparky and Sirly side by side now. This is the battle we said was going to happen for P6. The Lexus on the outside, not managing to get that exit. P6 staying ahead for now. We head into turn 11.
Ziggy in the pits as well.
Yeah, Ziggy coming to the pits off of those very worn medium tires and 1% fuel. We'll be going on to the softs. We got 8 laps to go to be able to take the softs to the end.
Bertie in as well.
Yeah, Birdie will be going on the softs as well. Look, the softs probably won't be a concern for him to get to the end, considering the 650S in his hands is very nice on those tires. But Ziggy might have to worry that Mercedes isn't the best on tires as it used to be. We'll have to see if he can get to the end on the softs with the 8 laps to go.
Yep, Sicily's still fighting this one as well. Bertie has joined his teammate in the pits, and they're going to come out relatively close together because Bertie isn't going to take on as much fuel as Ziggy. But yeah, this fight, we did see Sicily go side by side with Sparky. Sparky has been very wide on that one, but Bertie goes to the tops, by the way. I will finish this point. Sparky has been fighting all the positions all the way through this one, as he fights the car on that one, and then yeah, I think this is going to be a matter of time. Sparky's tyres are very second-hand, even for a McLaren. So Sicily is going to have the grip, and he's just going to, at some point in the next lap or so, drive right round or straight down the inside of that McLaren. But Sicily does compromise his own straight-line speed through that left-hander and has lost out again. So Sicily just needs to keep it cool, keep it calm, and the race is going to come to him. And I have to say, Sarah is going to be in this lap as well, seeing that fuel, seeing that tyre. Now we're going to start to see this race really unfolding. We've got Lee's coming down the back straight, followed by Ziggy. Bertie on the back straight as well, and so is Murph, although carrying a lot of damage. So we're going to have a lot of cars in very quick succession. But at the moment, all eyes on Sparky and Sicily. Matt, can Sparky hold off Sicily for another 6 or 7 laps? I think this question might be answered relatively quickly. Sparky actually decides he's had enough. He's coming in.
As an interesting strategy call, maybe he felt like he wasn't going to be able to hold off Sirly and said, I might as well come into the pits and take a fresh set of tyres. So probably come out just behind Sarah once that pit stop's finished. But just to mention as well, you saw Sirly get a bit squirrely on the exit of turn 9 from like seemingly magical dust, or sorry, turn 8, from like seemingly magical dust being kicked on the track. That's one characteristic of turn 8. Quick little fun fact for you is I think it's one of the only corners in this game that has dirt on tarmac. The dirt in that corner is not actually dirt, it's like tarmac. It's on the tarmac. I think if somebody went off the track and came back on the track with dirt on their car, you'll see it if we go into turn 8 in a while. Trust me, I'm not making this up. You'll see there's not actually dirt in that corner. You see now, I think Stirley is going to be heading to this corner now. On the inside, that's not actually like a dirt patch. That's actually just tarmac with loads of dust on it. It's crazy. And if you go onto it, you will kick up a bit of dust.
There you go.
As he just did.
Bit of an insight there, thank you, Matt. You are right. I did wonder that might affect some of our drivers. We haven't seen too much in the way of incidents out of that corner. Although I will say, unlike the red lobby, which I will not name the driver, me, who had an incident through that. But that's besides the point. But yeah, that's a good little insight there. And Sparky has come out behind Sarah on those soft tyres as well. I do wonder though, could Sparky have just nursed that car to the end on those mediums? Saying that, I don't think he had been. No, did he start? He started on the soft tyre. It's an interesting call from Sparky, that one. We do see Ziggy is the battle. Ziggy on Lee. So Lee has dropped some time in that final sector, and here comes Ziggy challenging for P4. So these two have been racing together for a couple of years now. Lee holding off Ziggy at the moment. So have the quick look forwards. Sicily at the other end of that straight. We do have Phil and Gary who have entered the back straight, so they are well clear at the moment. Sicily I think he's got a big enough gap to hold off Lee and Ziggy. These two are going to be pushing like crazy. Now Ziggy with that ultimate tyre advantage on the softs. Can he get past Lee and get to the end in a decent front right tyre?
Let's see. Of course, we know the Porsche is not the best on the tyres as well, so we'll see if he can get to the end, and so can Ziggy as they head through turn 7 and now turn 8. See Ziggy on that inside, trying to get a bit of time on that Porsche. And I know the AMG straight line speed may not be the best in this new update. We will have slipstream help from the 911 as they head out of the tunnel. Not manage to gain enough time, might stick a nose down the inside, which he will, but Lee is going to have this exit, but he does manage to get the move done. Lee just doesn't get the drive out of the corner, and the Mercedes is ahead.
Good move from Ziggy there, very opportunistic.
Absolutely, and capitalizing on Lee's mistake there. Just usually you can get a better exit on that outside line and just run it right up to the wall, but Lee just didn't have the torque there, didn't have the power he needed to drive out of that corner, and Ziggy capitalizing on that and getting ahead. So up in a P4 as he chases down Sidley ahead, potentially 4.3. There's only 5 laps to go once they cross the line.
Yeah, it's going to be a big ask for Ziggy to catch Sidley on that one, but well done. That will look like a robust but fair move. Ziggy on Lee on that one, and I don't think Lee's going to be too upset because he's done an interesting strategy, got himself up into P5. We do know Lee with the feature race, it's not his speciality, he much prefers the sprints. But that said, I think he's done himself proud today. I think he'd be very happy with the counter strategy that he's run to be battling Ziggy for P4, but he's going to have to keep an eye on the present P6. Bertie in that 650S on the soft tyres as well. Bertie set in a purple sector 1, so he's got the bit between the teeth, and he's going to be coming at Lee now as well. So Lee's going to have to start looking in his mirrors again. But even then, right behind Sarah, and behind Sarah, Sparky. So we've got a few drivers in quick succession at the moment down that back straight.
Just mentioned as well, Iceman managed to bag fast lap at some point. So down in P10 right now, potentially pitting soft tyres. You see, pitted for those soft tyres and running for fastest lap. Not the best position for the Genesis driver. Had a really good sprint race. A good start as well. In feature, just right now trailing that I believe one of the leaders up ahead. That's one of the GTRs. Yeah, Phil after lapping the Genesis driver, but good points to bag anyways. You might as well make the most of the situation of hitting those soft tyres to get that fastest lap.
Yeah, can agree more. Ziggy's had an incident somewhere. He's carrying some big damage, man.
Could be turn 8, potentially. The corner that we were mentioning earlier with the dirt on the corner could potentially understeered off into the wall just before the tunnel and gotten that damage. So that will be not nice in that AMG. The AMG is already quite an understeery car, and he's going to have even more understeer and not good straight line speed. You can see Lee on the brakes there, late braking, really catching up to the rear of that Mercedes and heading into turn 5 now. Will be struggling now. That's not going to help the tyre wear either. We know that damage does increase the tyre wear on these cars, and it's going to be tough. Tough ask for Steve to get that car to the end ahead of 11 driver.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, Lee's going to have the advantage now because that soft tyre advantage from Ziggy is going to start to disappear any minute now. And carrying that damage, we know he's going to be slower in a straight line. Lee doesn't need a second invite to take a position back. Ziggy's actually going to be careful of his teammate, who is only, I think, 5 seconds behind. So Ziggy, what will look like a nailed on P4 might turn into P5 or even P6 if he's unlucky. But I really, really genuinely have to say it's great to see Ziggy enjoying his racing, and particularly giving us a good performance here today. So whatever position he comes back with, I'm sure he'll be happy with a good performance. It's not entirely the result he wanted, but it's not over yet. We still have another 3 laps to go. I think we are fairly nailed on for the winner on this one. Great performances from the T50 boys, mate.
Absolutely. I mean, I've already mentioned it since the start with the front row lockout. It's been quite dominant from the 2 GTRs. Even Sitterly, when he was making his way through the pack, the 2 GTRs kind of broke away from that 3rd, 4th, and 5th battle, and were just posting out in front. And a fuel, and Ziggy's had a bit of a moment there and went onto the grass on the inside of turn 3 and just about tapped the barrier, and now has both front left and front right damage. So he must have hit the inside wall of turn 3, and that spit him back out onto the track. That is so unfortunate for Ziggy. He was having such a good race, and he's now having a bit of a spin here, which is going to lose him position to his teammate Birdie, with Sarah following not too far behind.
Yeah, this is where being opportunistic is going to pay off for the drivers in and around Ziggy. I think he was trying too hard through that first left complex. He got on the grass. I think he may well have hit the barrier on the left, like you said, but then, yeah, after you've lost control, the barrier is waiting for you on the right hand side of turn 3. But he's got going again. He's just got to find his rhythm, but you can see that AMG does not, that front end doesn't want to go into a corner anymore. And that front right is also looking a little bit murdered. So, like you say, damage increases tyre wear. So Ziggy suffering at the moment, but he's going to have Sarah for company, only a corner behind. And she's going to want P6, frankly. And her tyres looking like in a much better state with a couple of laps to go. So I think it's game on for Sarah in that M6.
Definitely. It would be a good position to gain for Sarah. Would be a very nice finish P6 if she managed to get the move on the AMG. Now, Ziggy will be struggling on the straight and into some of the slow corners the fast corners where it's mechanical grip and the downforce. So any of those high downforce corners, you need that front grip, which will be this first sector, which may have been the reason that he had that crash, because he had less downforce on the front of the car because of the damage he had gotten earlier in the lap before. So you see, he does manage to navigate his way through this time, but definitely posting his way through, not pushing the limit like he would have been the lap before.
Yeah, it's one thing, you have an incident, he's got away with it. It wasn't a major incident, but it definitely would have given him a bit of a shake, and he's going to have to cool himself off, calm down, and try and defend that position. But Sarah is closing up rapidly, and he's only got, well, so he's only got a lap to hold on. But there you go, there's the difference. Both are in the tunnel, and you can definitely see Sarah is picking up some speed. But Phil starting his final lap. Looks like he's going to be heading to his maiden Blue Lobby win, I believe.
Always nice to see a new winner in the Blue Lobby, and it's been quite the win for Phil when he crosses the line. I mean, just an absolutely brilliant performance. Strategy's been on point, and the car has looked on form the entire race. And the same can be said for Gary, who's going to come home in P2. Two T50 drivers going home P1 and P2, just like they started. They'll be very happy with that.
Yeah, you couldn't fail to come away with a bit of smile after this one. Both the T50 drivers in there, I believe, 3rd and 2nd, or maybe 4th and 3rd races respectively. 1 or 2. It seems like they've been here a long time. But both of the drivers in their early stages with Nighthawk Racing and doing themselves proud. As you can see Gary kicking up a bit of that dust that we mentioned earlier on, and Sitley doing himself very, very proud as well. Not that far behind the, not to say dominant, but the impressive showing for the T50 drivers. But now eyes go to can Ziggy hold on to that P6. But Matt, I think this turns to, I think this has been a, I'm not going to say it's a classic race, but it's been an intriguing race, and it's been one of strategy and people. It's been a survival as well. It's been a good race from a lot of people, and I don't think I've seen anyone have a bad race at all here today.
I mean, it's always exciting when we come to a new track, like we would be next week at Road Atlanta. Of course, the drivers would have had not as much time to practice, and I will cut my monologue off as Phil will be crossing the line here now, coming home in P1, swerving coming across the line. Very happy with that win. But yeah, no, it's always good to come to a new track and to just see how the drivers tackle it with their strategies and the cars, and the drivers who have tackled the strategy and the cars the best have been those two T50 lads who will come home P1 and P2, with Gary just crossing the line there in P2. As you can see, Sarah is closing up on the back of Ziggy, while Sitterly is coming through the final corners. Too far back right now for Sarah to launch the move. We will be watching it while Sitterly is coming up to the line, as it does look like Sarah may have just gotten ahead of Ziggy, and she has indeed. Ziggy understeering off into that corner, turn 13. Sitterly coming across the line in P3, with Lee finishing in P4, Birdie in P5, and of course my speech got a bit interrupted by Sarah overtaking Ziggy, but Sarah will now cross the line in P6 with Ziggy in P7. We saw Simon crossing the line as well in P11, as well as Iceman in P10. Garkey comes home in P8 for the McLaren after that late pit stop that we didn't expect. And Murph is the last one circulating right now on the track in the Super. He's got a bit of front end damage, and he's got that front race, which is completely worn down. So there's not a lot of grip left in that car.
I will say on the top of his car it says "Never give up," taking the John Cena moniker there. And he hasn't given up, and that is great to see. He's got to the end of the race. He's got some solid points. I mean, his tyre's given up, but he hasn't given up. But at least that's something. And he's got some good, solid points. And he's been a welcome addition to the F1 RST Nighthawk Racing Championship the last few races. So well done to Murph. He's happy he's finished. Matt, 37 laps, Trial Mountain. We can breathe now, finally. That was a pretty... I enjoyed that, and it was... I'm going to say it straight off the bat. Great to see a lot of good racing, a lot of very interesting strategy. I think it's been one of the more strategic-orientated races we've had all season. But it was really great to see a lot of drivers getting on top of a lot of things that have been a bit difficult for them, a bit plaguing them over the last few series, and nailing down a great strategy and getting the most out of themselves. That's always great to see.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I do have to say, I think at some point everybody was up in the top 5 battling everybody, so it's always good to see. There was nearly everyone on the grid was up battling everyone at the front, and everyone had their chance to show their true pace in the top positions. And I mean, it could have been anyone's race today. Now, we did see the T50 drivers come home in P1 and P2 and really dominate with that net race lead the entire race, but there was basically a battle to the line for the podium positions. I mean, Sitterly came home in P3, but it could have been anyone's podium today, and he's the man that takes the last step on the podium.
Well, what can you say? That's my turn to ask you. I'll give you a few seconds break, but you know what question's coming. Driver of the day.
I mean, I have to say, like, it's kind of it's tricky because, you know, there's two T50 drivers, and you have to give driver of the day to one of them. And I have to say, I will have to give it to Phil. I mean, the two T50 drivers did amazing today in P1 and P2, but of course Phil did end up getting the win, and has led from the first lap, and I think it's just been a really good performance from him. Really good strategy, and I mean, no faults for the race. You know, that's all you can ask for, is a clean, nice race and a lovely win at the end of it.
I will completely agree with you, especially after starting at the back in the sprint, coming through to P2. I will, however, give a good second place, a massive shout out to Lee in this one for a sprint race victory, and coming home P4 in the P4 behind Titley in the end. So a big shout out to Lee. He has done brilliant with that counter strategy today, and it's made it work, even though we did see him after 5 laps with what was essentially a flat tyre. So well done there. What can we say? I think that's round 7 over, Mac, and I don't think there's any major talking points we have to talk about for this one, other than we're getting towards the end of the championship. We've got another 3 rounds to go. Road Atlanta, High Speed Ring, and then the ever-present Bathurst, which is going to be the first time we've been to both Road Atlanta and Bathurst. So, a couple of tricky tracks coming. I think of all the tracks we've got coming, a little bit of Road Atlanta, but for me, Bathurst would be the most similar one to this one. It puts a lot of tight, twisty corners, one after the other, and it bodes well, I think, particularly for those T50 boys who have been outstanding today, and amongst all the other drivers who've had a good race as well. So I will say also on the last point, unfortunate for Ziggy, almost come away with that P4. Has done himself proud, particularly in the feature race, but he will be gutted not to have come away with the more points today. But pleasure to see him racing as an absolute always. Any thoughts from you, Mac, on any of those points, or anything that you want to point out in particular?
I mean, really to just touch on the next 3 races. I mean, we've had really good seasons so far, and I think Road Atlanta will be an interesting one. It is similar to this track in the fact that a lot of the corners will be kind of similar. We got the S's, we've got a few kind of harsh braking zones. We got a nice long back straight as well. But yeah, Bathurst is going to be interesting. I don't have any comments on Bathurst. I'm not the best driver around there.
Me and you both.
But I'd say, yeah, it's similar to this track. But honestly, I'd say, in my opinion, I'd say Road Atlanta is probably the most similar to this one. I know that Bathurst and this are kind of like semi-street tracks, but at the same time, I do think that there's different cars that would perform better at Bathurst than at this track. High Speed Ring has been a staple in the championship since season 1, and it'll be... I'm not sure which cars and which drivers will be on top there, because it seems to change every season, especially with BOP. We've got the high speed BOP for that track, which would be different from the one that we have for this one. So it will shift the cars that will be good there, and the tire wear and the fuel. We have not the best fuel consumption because there's mostly straights and high speed corners, as in the name, High Speed Ring. And yeah, I mean, on to Road Atlanta, I guess. That's what we need to think about now, which will be coming next week. So that's the ones drivers will be focusing on for now, and we'll just have to see which car comes on top. In my opinion, I'd say the mid-rear car is going to be quite powerful there, but anything can happen.
I guess we will find out in due course. That race coming up within the next week. So, with that in mind, I think we need to go and hear what the drivers have gotten up to, what they think of this race. So let's hear from all the drivers that were in the podium room. And I'm going to say thank you to Mac. It's been a pleasure being alongside you again. Hope to see you for the odd one for the rest of the season. And what can I say? I think we should urge everyone to watch the Red Lobby as well for a little bit more of a... I'm not going to say demolition derby, because that's unfair. But it's definitely a bit more robust, I think it's the fair term. But something to look forward to for the other videos. So check out the Red Lobby and check us out on Instagram and TikTok as well for the picture updates. But again, thank you very much, Mac. I'll see you in Road Atlanta, and hopefully we'll have a few of you join us for that race as well.
So, have a good rest of your days.
Through the whole week, the whole race, it felt like the car felt all right. Qualified P6. I didn't know at the time, but that was the best of the medium runners in qualifying. The sprint wasn't anything to really talk about. Finished at the back, P8, I think it was. Just kind of trying not to get myself in trouble. The race was all about tire wear, something I've never been good with. On top of that, on lap 6, I hit the wall coming onto the backstretch, damaged the right front, stayed out on that, thinking, oh god, this is it, I'm gonna finish at the back now because I gotta fix that. Did an alright stint on the hards after that, but it wasn't long enough for what I wanted. I had to pit a little earlier than I expected for the final stop on mediums, and had to do tire conservation, which is something I've never been good with at all. If you've ever seen the tire wear chart, me pitting early, but just not making any further mistakes, keeping it out of the wall, letting other guys wear out their tires and such. There was no hope in catching either of the T50 guys, so coming away P3, best of the rest, I'd say that's pretty solid in my part.
A perfect round, really. I had the pace to control the feature race and up to second from the back of the grid in the sprint. Unfortunately, it throws me back into the red lobby, which I will fail miserably at.